Freya, the great Vanir goddess and ex-wife of the mad king Odin All-Father. This character in God of War 2018 was such an incredibly impactful and emotionally rich part of the 2018 game, and it looks like from the trailers that she will be playing an even bigger part of God of War Ragnarok. But who is she? We know she's a very powerful goddess who lives in Midgard, one with a curse placed upon her to never hurt a living thing, and we know she is Baldur's mother. But I'm here to tell you guys that there is way more to the story than that. Like, how did she meet Odin? How or why did Odin banish her to Midgard? What's the deal with her son? And what else happened in her past that could potentially affect us in Ragnarok? Well, today I'm going to give you guys the complete story of Freya, explaining all the important events in her life. This is what happened to Freya, the complete story so far. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and if you want to see more cool videos like this, then subscribe to the channel to get those soon as they happen. Alright, let's begin. When we pick up the story in 2018, we meet one of the most interesting characters ever, in my opinion, Freya. We meet her while Atreus is practicing to use a bow and arrow on a boar he spots, which actually turns out to be her friend. We help her temporarily, but it is here that we discover that she is more than a random woman that we have met in the woods. Way more. Someone very powerful, someone who can tell right away that Kratos is a god.
I know you're a god. Not of this realm, but there's no mistaking it.
That is because Freya is a god herself. A god from the great Vanir tribe of the realm Vanaheim. The Vanir gods are a powerful group of beings who possess great magics, one so powerful that the Aesir gods saw them as a great threat. A long time ago, Freya, along with her brother Freyr, were both leaders of the Vanir tribe. At a time of great tension between the Vanir and the Aesir, with the Aesir not wanting their dominance to be questioned, her brother Freyr once tried to relieve the tension by brokering peace between the two gods by offering them a gift, the gift of seeder magic. The magic he taught them was how to use certain spells to grow crops, enough to feed the whole of Asgard. However, seeder magic can be dark and always has a downside. After teaching them how to use these spells, the Aesir quickly lost control of the magic and it soon began to poison their crops. The Aesir gods were obviously furious at this and saw it as a form of mockery, and of course blamed her brother Freyr, and as punishment they threw him into a pile of corpses and set it on fire. What the Aesir gods didn't count on though is Freya's ability to survive fire, and when they believed him dead, he slipped out of Asgard and returned to Vanaheim to tell the story of what they'd done. This right here was the spark that ignited the long cruel war between the two tribes of gods. The war between the brute force Aesir and the magic wielding Vanir. The Vanir led by our goddess Freya and her father Njord. The Aesir gods would attack the beautiful landscapes of Vanaheim and its people using militaristic tactics and brute force. But Freya was incredibly skilled in the seeder magics of Vanir, so skilled that she would cast spells on Odin's army, tricking them into attacking themselves. It wasn't all wins for the Vanir though. While they were skilled, they still lost many lives to the bloodshed. Both sides did, and thus found themselves in a long stalemate of both tribes giving lives to the cruel war. A long while later, all while this war raged on with no progress, Mimir came to the lands of the gods and offered his knowledge and wisdom to Odin, and became one of his trusted advisors. And while Mimir was working for the Mad King, watching the bloodshed of the gods, he devised a plan, one that would hopefully bring about long-lasting peace between the Aesir and the Vanir gods. His plan was for Freya, one of the leaders of the Vanir and our witch from the woods, to marry King Odin himself. A marriage that would signify a bond between two tribes, one that would end the pointless slaughtering of precious lives. A great thought. However, it didn't just happen. We're told by Mimir that it took some convincing, but Freya ultimately saw that it was a necessary sacrifice to protect her people from further attacks. A true selfless act of love, Mimir called it, and it was. Soon after the marriage began, Freya gave birth to a son, Baldur, improving the relationship created out of necessity. It was not long after did Freya hear of a prophecy of Baldur's death, which caused her to spend the next 20 years tirelessly looking for a way to prevent it. Eventually, with the help of her mentor, Hildisvini, and Mimir, she found a powerful protection spell using a mixture of new and old magic, one that would protect Baldur from any harm. But it had a terrible side effect of leaving him with no feeling whatsoever, and Baldur began to resent his mother for what she did. Now, according to Mimir, who witnessed the entire relationship from beginning to end, where Freya first simply put up with the Mad King as it was really for protection for her people and not for love, she slowly started to warm to King Odin. Odin had also seemingly softened to the beautiful goddess and now queen. Being absolutely charmed by her magnificence, Odin seemed genuinely interested in making Freya happy, according to Mimir. He granted her many wishes in the time they were together, one of them being granted the position of Valkyrie Queen, a position that gave her a newfound sense of warrior spirit along with great Valkyrie wings. And because of Odin's actions, Freya also let her guard down a bit, so much so that she felt she could trust him enough to teach him the ways of Cedar magic, a magic so dangerous to those who obsess over it, making the user more and more insidious if they are unable to control themselves. Someone like Odin, who is already paranoid about the end of the world in Ragnarok, perhaps. It was only after her obsession of trying to find a way to stop the prophecy of her son, and when she saw how he used the magic, did she realize that all the nice parts of Odin were a lie. Freya did notice the king's corrupt use of her magic and tried to limit his progress without stopping, as she needed to preserve the marriage for the sake of her people, but she realized it too late. Freya did stay with Odin for years after realizing that the nice side of Odin was all a lie, purely for the sake of peace, but it eventually became too much. The final straw that really pushed the relationship was due to Freya's good heart and interfering with Odin's plans to kill more giants. It happened a while ago when a crafty giant king by the name of Thrym the Cunning stole Thor's giant killing weapon Mjolnir in his sleep one day, not for any noble reason, but because he just wanted to steal something, not realizing it was the giant killing weapon of one of the most dangerous Aesir gods to the giants, Thor's. Realizing what he had done, he contacted the Aesir gods through Tyr, offering a trade to Odin. He would give Mjolnir back in return for Freya as his bride. Odin saw this as an opportunity to gain access to Jotunheim, the homeworld of the giants, and the ones he knew would be involved in his death and the destruction of Asgard, so he agreed, but with a cunning plan. He coerced Freya into the deal and forced her to use her powerful magics to conceal Thor and then sneak him into the realm with them. As soon as the Aesir got to Jotunheim and Thor saw Mjolnir, Thor grabbed his hammer and smashed Thrym right in the skull and began to kill the rest of the giants present for the trade. Freya, being the kind and peaceful person she is, tried to step in to stop the slaughter, but she could not. Odin didn't take too kindly to this and took this last act as the final straw and the ultimate act of betrayal. Odin pushed the new magics he had learned further and further until he was raving mad with power. Freya realized now that she could not stomach the marriage any longer and broke it off. But at this point, Odin had become quite skilled with the Side magic and knew all of Freya's vulnerabilities and exploited them to cast a curse on her she could never break. Odin first cast a spell on her that she could never hurt a living thing, not with a blade nor magic, rendering herself completely defenseless and robbing her of her warrior spirit. He also ripped her Valkyrie wings from her he had given and cast her out of Asgard into Midgard, where he placed another spell which tied her to that realm and that realm alone, so she may never leave. And then, on top of all of that, Odin cast a spell on the realm of Vanaheim, blocking all travel in and out of the realm so that she could never communicate with her people and they could never help her or even know what transpired, which to the people of Vanaheim looked like Freya helped Odin seal the realm and Freya had betrayed her own people. There is one more story that happens in the history of the Norse saga of God of War that kind of involves Freya, but it's more to do with how it's going to affect the overall story and possibly how it will play a part in God of War Ragnarok. I've made a whole dedicated video on how I think that will play a part in the next game, and personally I think it's a very, very cool theory, so go and check that out by clicking this card up here. And this here is where we pick up the story in the 2018 game, where Freya takes shelter under a new friend, Charlie the giant tortoise, and lived there with her Vanir shape-shifting mentor, Hildisvini, who we met in the game when Atreus shot him with an arrow. In the 2018 game, Freya conceals her identity from us for a while, probably because she's rather defenseless and doesn't want to say anything that could endanger herself, but she does recognize Kratos' godhood. She helps Kratos a number of times, once with reanimating Mimir's head after they cut it from the tree he is bound to. This is where we find out who the Witch of the Woods really is. Freya helps us again when Atreus falls ill from the two parts of him fighting against each other inside him, and she also helps us travel to different realms by teaching us how to use the Bifrost. And then, at the end of the game, Kratos tries to save her by killing her son Baldur, who was moments away from strangling his own mother to death. Something Freya seemed to accept, as she knew she was responsible for the suffering Baldur had been experiencing. It was at this moment that Freya vowed to exact vengeance on Kratos for what he has done here today. She then takes Baldur's body and leaves. And that is the story of Freya so far. I really like all of this backstory. It really improves the character. I feel like she's a pretty awesome. I hope you guys all enjoyed it as well. Let me know in the comments section whether or not Freya is one of your favorite characters like she is mine. And let me know if you guys are looking forward to Freya in God of War Ragnarok. I know she's one of my top characters I'm looking forward to, and I can't wait to see how her story goes. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll catch you guys all in the next one.